Aight, we're going.
Okay. That was our new, very sad intro that just dropped.
Yeah, new intro. Who dis?
Created by your own Taylor.
Ah, thank you.
Right
thank
here.
You.
I almost said your last name.
We could edit it out.
I don't want to out you on the podcast.
Thank you. Just like a sensor, like a beep.
Yeah. Taylor beep.
Yeah. Yes. Now I dabble in tunes, in the tune making.
One could say. You guys, it's another installment of Art of the Revolution.
Yes, the mini-series. Remarks is the podcast. This is the series.
Yeah, I would say that.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, hi, it's Phoebe.
This is Phoebe, as you know. My name's Taylor. And we're gonna tell you about some revolution.
Yeah.
How was your research this week, my friend?
So good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I felt like it was on point. I feel like the way that I wrote out my notes this week is very storytelling.
Oh,
so
nice.
Get excited for that.
A little flair to it, you know. Hell yeah. No, I had a good one. I feel like it's gonna be. Again, we were kind of talking about this earlier in the week, but it's going to be a little bit more of a lighthearted episode, which is a nice break, especially from last week's, which was pretty intense in some areas. But yeah, and not that there's not some dark things about any kind of revolution. But...
Mine definitely has a little bummer section, but I mean, when doesn't it, you know?
Exactly. I mean, it's to be expected at this point.
Yeah, definitely less of a bummer-sode this week, though.
True. But yeah, so anyway, we're doing fashion, most specifically fashion, or women's fashion. Mm-hmm. And just some of the revolutionary things around that. Since I don't know, maybe there's some fucking dude out there that would be like, fashion isn't an art, but obviously fashion is clearly absolutely an art.
Yeah, so, most definitely.
I'm gonna kick it off. So, a quick history of a little bit of the women's right movement. Woo. Just some Flagstaff events that happen. Is that the right word?
Sure.
Yeah.
It sounded good to me. I was ooh, yeah.
May 15th, 1869, Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Stanton found the National Women's Suffrage Movement, which was an organization, of course, that wanted to make women suffer. I'm pretty sure that's what that word means.
Yeah, it was specifically created to just make women's lives even worse than they already are. It's absolutely
awful, yeah. We were like, want those women's suffrage real bad. No. Suffrage being that they wanted them to be able to vote.
Yes.
October 16th, 1916, Margaret Sanger founded the first birth control clinic, which was technically illegal at the time, and it was shut down, but that was when she founded it. Quick note, Margaret Sanger is a little sus. We could maybe go into more of a detailed episode on that, because it's really hard because it's again, birth control, good things. Right. Pioneer in that area. Eugenics,
No, exactly. There's been a lot of strides in, women's healthcare, but it's due to, horrible, horrible shit.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, so it's interesting for sure. But that was, I get definitely a moment there. Mm-hmm. April 2nd, 1917, first House of Representative was sworn in, Jeanette Rankin. So the first female House of Representative.
What year was that?
That was in 1917.
Oh, okay.
So we're getting kind of close. And then August 18th, 1920, women can vote due to the 19th Amendment. So that was.
I feel like it's interesting that there was a woman in politics before women were allowed to vote.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of strange. I don't exactly know. I feel like, because you know how public opinion will usually shift on something and then kind of the laws follow up. I feel like that's partially what it was.
Sure.
Especially being it might have been one of those things where it's well, there's no rule that says women can't be in government. There's a rule that says they can't vote or whatever. It's
interesting.
And it's so weird too, reading up on this kind of stuff, it's just wild to me that there was a point that was, I guess 100 years ago now, but barely 100 years ago, where like women just couldn't vote.
I know.
For any representative. Like, it's crazy because I'm
No,
like,
it
how?
really...
I guess it's just such a given now that it's like, of course, why the fuck wouldn't women be able to vote?
Right.
Like, it's stupid to think that they wouldn't be able to.
Yeah,
Like,
but yeah, it's just like, it's so wild, like how far we've come in a fairly short amount of time, but also how far we've not come.
exactly. And that's I was also telling you earlier this week, like, I'm interested to get some of your perspectives on how things have changed for the worst or for the better, and then also kind of for the worse, you know?
Right, yeah.
Well, so that was kind of some of the historical events leading up to the 1920s, and then, of course, in 1920, women being able to vote, which kind of like exploded this big fashion revolution and kind of rebelling against the Christian conservative values of the time. Women began discarding corsets in favor of brassieres. Stockings, which were formerly made out of heavy black wool, were now made out of silk and rayon. Skirts became higher, which led to stockings meant to be seen. So there was like fancy embroiderments and things.
Right.
Kind of goes hand in hand with like the opulence of the 1920s too, like
Sure.
Great Gatsby kind of shit.
Yeah.
But oh my god, I can't imagine wearing a corset. That sounds awful.
A corset with wool tights?
Yeah.
Fuck that.
I mean, and I know people wear corsets now and whatnot, but like,
Yeah.
I guess if you're wearing one now, it's like you're choosing to wear a corset,
Yeah.
but like having to wear a corset to go out, or
Every
like it
day.
being like the only like acceptable thing to wear, like if you were
Yeah.
going out, sounds not like a good time.
They're so much more, like, comfortable now. Back then it was
Oh,
made of,
yeah.
like, fucking whale bones and shit. That's horrible.
Oh god, yeah. Companies began creating sportswear for women since more and more women began participating in sports. There was golf skirts and tennis skirts that became a thing, and new form-fitting stretch knit swimwear was now available. A few of the brands, Catalina, Cole, and Jantzen, got their starts in the 1920s and still make swimsuits today,
Damn.
or swimwear. So, you know, again, kind of a lot of strides. The fashion, of course, follows with the trends. So it's like women start playing more sports and being more, I guess, just having more lives outside of just like being a housewife
Yeah.
and whatnot, you know? Of course, flapper girls, as they were called, was a big staple of the 1920s.
Yeah.
Known for wearing short, shapeless shift dresses, and would often bind their breasts to give them a flat-chested appearance.
I didn't know that.
Interestingly enough.
Yeah, that is interesting.
It was, I don't know if I think the intention was to, like, rebel against, like, the traditional female form as much as possible.
Yeah.
So they almost wanted, because, like, with, like, the shorter hair and, you know, the binding and whatnot, they almost, like, it said in the article I was reading that, like, they wanted to go for a more, like, boyish silhouette.
Right.
Which I think was because they were trying to, like, completely go against any kind of, like, traditional femininity of the
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
At least some of them. I can't say all of them.
No,
of
but
course,
yeah, that was kind of the, like, big,
Yeah.
obviously now very famously known thing is, like, that flapper look. Well, and if you think about that compared with, like, the corset, which is sucking in your waist, pushing your boobies up.
Your mommy milkers up.
Your mommy milkers, shoving those mommy milkers out on the town.
Exactly.
Yeah, like, that's, like, literally the complete opposite, which is, like you said, like, shapeless, so you don't have that silhouette figure that the corset is giving you, and then smushing the mommy milkers.
Getting them in there. Interestingly enough, it was one of the first times that women of lower classes could be seen as fashionable, since the dresses were easy to sew at home and didn't require a tailor to make them. And like, because, you know, I mean, if you compare them to like the previous dresses, again with the corsets and whatnot, like, you know, you could tell when it was like a lower end dress or like
Totally.
a lower end tailor. But these ones were so easy to make, and they were also, you know, high fashion at the time,
Right.
or what was popular, that a lot of like lower class, lower income women could now like I don't even say appear, they could be with the trends.
Sure,
I guess, you
right,
know,
right.
even if they didn't have all the money in the world. Coco Chanel was one of the first, or among the first, to popularize women's trousers. So wearing pants, which, is a big deal. Because pants are manly, Phoebe, if you didn't know.
They're very manly. I'm channeling masculine energy by wearing these.
It's true.
Blue
I'm getting mask from you. I'm getting mask with your pink hat. Yeah. And again, it's just like, I guess it's just funny to like laugh about now because of how ridiculous it is.
Right.
Almost.
Like the fact that like 100 years ago, women just couldn't fucking wear pants. Like that's insane.
Just like, no
that's
pants.
That's crazy to think about.
Well, and I did not research this, but I'm remembering a story I think I heard on like the radio or something. And it was like this story of this woman who was, I think, a kindergarten teacher and had to appear in court. I think it might have been jury duty even, and was like really determined to wear pants, like a pantsuit with pants and whatnot. And like the judge would not allow her to wear that, and like and it became this like big thing. Like the actual case was almost forgot about because like this woman would go to the court every day like wearing pants, and the judge would like either call the court case off and be like, we can't proceed if you're wearing men's attire or
when
whatever.
Was this?
I have no idea. I'm gonna
look
it up.
Like it wasn't like 2006 or something.
No.
Like
it was
earlier era.
Yeah, it might have been in like, I don't know. Could have even been in like the 30s or 40s.
Sure.
I'll look it up when you're doing your thing because now I'm interested to remember.
Yeah, that's wild.
But yeah, so lots of progress being made. The fashion was booming. We'll talk a little bit more about hair in a second. Mm-hmm. But I found this website called crusadeforthevote.com, which has kind of like a history of women's suffrage. And before there was an official organization, there was obviously many people that opposed women's suffrage. Preachers, reporters, kind of just the general...
Yeah.
I don't even know if the general public, because there were quite a few people who were just like, yeah, why not? But I guess especially in like areas with more conservative values, like a lot of preachers.
For sure.
Even reporters, if it's like more of like a right-wing news outlet and whatnot. Were very anti-women's suffrage.
These women are gonna vote for the devil.
Exactly. Pretty much, yeah. I have a pamphlet to read you in a second.
Oh,
so.
Sick. Okay.
In 1911, Josephine Dodge organized the National Association opposed to women's suffrage. So it was kind of like an at Susan B. Anthony kind of thing. You're in the National Association for Women's Suffrage. We're the National Association opposed to women's suffrage.
Fuck yeah.
Bitch.
IRL Twitter beef.
True, yeah. She added her real hard. Their arguments, which I think were funny, included women did not want to vote, was like one of their catch lines.
Okay.
They took care of the children in the home, so women had no time to stay up to date on politics and current events, which is kind of dumb. I feel like you'd have more time.
Right.
And if you weren't working at like 40 hours a week,
yeah,
right?
Wouldn't you think?
And I feel like a lot of men probably back then were working more than 40 hours a week because there weren't quite the same labor laws.
Yeah.
That's a dumb argument. And then the real icing on the cake, women lacked the expertise or mental capacity to offer a useful opinion on politics, which
women be stupid.
Yeah, classic women thinking they can have an opinion, an informed opinion. How dare they?
Their little fragile fingers are too soft to press the voting button.
It's true.
To hold a pen and fill in the bubble.
Oh gosh, yeah. So just some fuckery like that that was going on. Anti-feminist icon Weith Knudsen is his name, which awful name. Weith Knudsen, Wieth. Weith is his name. And like
Weith Knudsen?
Knudsen, yeah.
Wow, dude.
What a fucking guy already. Honestly, if like okay, scenario here, really quick here. So you're in a bar, and some guy approaches you, like, hey, can I buy you a drink? And you're like, yeah, sure, whatever. And you're like, what's your name? And he says, Weeth. What are you assuming? What's the first thing in your head?
I would probably firstly assume I heard him wrong and would think he probably meant to say, like, Keith or something, which is, sorry to Keiths, but, like, Keith's not really a great name either.
That's funny, because my middle name is Keith.
Oh, fuck. I literally, as it was coming out of my mouth, I knew it.
I'm not upset. It's my middle name, so I don't have to.
It's my favorite name.
No. It's a middle name, so I don't ever have to be referred to as Keith,
True.
which is nice.
You're not a Keith, most definitely.
I don't feel like I am, but...
Yeah, and then if I asked him again and he said his name was Weeth, I don't think I could hold my laughter in.
Yeah. I feel like if someone was like, yo, my name's Weeth, I'd be like, you hate women for sure. Like, there's no way you cannot, like, with that name.
It probably comes from, like, his mom, like, fucking that was her idea for his name or something, and he's like, fuck women.
Yeah, this is a deep...
Ever since then.
We psychoanalyze everyone named... I don't know that there's anyone else named Weeth.
I've never met a Weeth, personally.
Anyway, Weeth Knudsen stated women who earned their own money and didn't have... women who earned their own money didn't have economic sense. So he was very, like, anti-feminist, anti-women having jobs and getting their own money. Many men and women feared this party lifestyle of the jazz and cinemas that would lead to family disintegration of, like, the 1920s and leading up to the 1920s because, again, flappers were hitting the town more, you know, going to jazz clubs and things like that. And, of course, they argued that, like, society would fall into depravity and there would be the fall of the white race because, you know... jazz being, like, at the time, a predominantly black style of music.
Yeah.
They, you know, racists.
Racists.
Yeah, it was bad. But anyway, I want to read you this pamphlet I found.
Yes.
It was one of the it was this, like, anti-women's suffrage pamphlet. And it's really funny because it was, like, It says, like, household hints, and then it says vote no on women's suffrage. So, like, it's like a household tip pamphlet that also has, like, sexist things, you know, sprinkled in there for some spice. Like,
for some spice.
So, National Association Opposed to Women's Suffrage, headquarters. Votes of women can accomplish no more than votes of men. Why waste time, energy, and money without result?
Well, sure.
And this is more of the... no suffrage thing, because 90% of the women either do not want it or do not care, because it means competition of women with men instead of cooperation, which, like, what? I feel like it just is more people voting, you know? Like, I don't... Honestly, wouldn't that be helpful if, like, more people were voting for what you wanted?
I mean... yeah, you would think. If their argument is that, like, your vote's just gonna essentially be the same as a men's vote, then isn't it, like, cool, then...
just let it happen.
You're gonna get what you want. Like,
I feel like, low-key, a lot of it, too, was like, oh, these liberated, heavy air quotes, liberated women are gonna be voting against what we want in our conservative values, you know? Because, I mean, it's the same, like, with, like, really any kind of progressive issue now, because it's, like, you know, the majority of people feel like gays should have rights and whatnot, but, like, it's, if it's gonna, like, challenge the status quo, I guess, because most gays are liberal.
Right.
Or at least liberal, if not more radical.
Right.
It's kind of that kind of vibe, I guess. Because 80% of women eligible to vote are married and only double or annul their husband's votes. That's kind of the same argument there.
Which, again, it's like, don't you want to have more people vote in for the person that you want?
Yeah, I don't... It's like, it'll either double or it'll annul their husband's votes. And it's like, yeah, that's how voting works. If there's one that's for something and one that's against it, those cancel each other out. That would happen with two dudes who fucking vote for different things, too. I don't get it. Because it can be of no benefit... sorry, it's hard to read.
Tiny text.
commensurate with additional expense involved. So I guess just the expense of now having to have more people vote, which I guess it'd be more expensive, but like
you gotta buy more paper.
Yeah, like I don't know. It's like okay.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, it's none of these arguments are really that valid.
Not valid at all, right? Yeah, because in some states, more voting women than voting men will place the government under petticoat rule. Which honestly, I didn't really get that the first time I read through this, but that sounds sexist.
Very, yeah. It sounds like how, like, dudes feel about, like, AOC now, where they're like, she's gonna turn it around, and there was, like, a picture, it's one of my fucking favorite things ever. There was a picture of, like, AOC, maybe Hillary Clinton or something, I don't know, it's just, like, female politicians, and they were, like, dominatrixes, and they had, like, the male politicians in collars, and were, like, whipping them, and was just like, this is the reality that women want.
And it's like, yeah, absolutely.
And I was like, kinda, yeah, actually.
Well, and it's just one of those things where it's like, you know, the fact that you're so scared of, like, feminism kind of means, like, you acknowledge that, like, we live in a patriarchy and, like, women have it bad, you know?
Exactly.
Like,
exactly.
Because, yeah, it's like if you're scared that, like, it's going to be the other way around, it's like, why are you scared if women don't have it worse than us, right? Like, I don't know.
You're just worried we're going to treat you the same way you're treating us?
Exactly. And, like, and that's the thing is, like, most feminism isn't like that. I'd say the overwhelming majority is just like, hey, can we not make less money than you doing the same exact thing, you know?
Yeah.
Like shit like that. So it's like, but the fact that you're scared of it is telling.
I know.
Is telling. Because it is unwise to risk the good we already have for the evil which may occur. Yeah, you called it. You called it with that.
It's
gosh,
so
it's so funny. Sorry, I need to get through this, but there's just a lot to talk about.
I love that.
You do not need a ballot to clean out your sink spout. A handful of potash and some boiling water is quicker and cheaper. Maybe polish? I think it says potash, but I don't know what that is.
I feel like it's some kind of old-timey soap or something.
Probably, but yeah, you don't need a ballot to clean out your sink spout.
Fuck you.
If new tinware be rubbed all over with fresh lard, then thoroughly heated before using, it will never rust. So again, that's some of the
little
weird like
tips.
Household tips that are interspersed with this.
Like, so real quick, fuck women. You're all stupid and don't deserve any kind of rights. Okay, so here's my idea for how to polish silver.
Honestly, it's so dumb. Use oatmeal on a damp cloth to clean white paint.
Really? That's actually...
Yeah, I guess so.
I'm gonna go home and try that.
There we go. Control of the temper makes a happier home than control of elections.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. A real curveball.
Why do you think that my fucking temper's bad? Because I can't vote.
I have no representation.
Exactly.
Yeah. Let's see. I'm trying to find other like funny ones that try to tie it in with the election. Good cooking lessens alcoholic craving quicker than a vote. So yeah, I guess it's like you better cook good so that you won't become an alcoholic, which is why you want to vote so that you don't become an alcoholic.
Okay.
I don't know. I didn't write this, Phoebe.
I mean, yeah.
Common sense and common salt application stop hemorrhage quicker than ballots.
Oh my god.
So yeah. Okay.
I'm hemorrhaging because I don't have rights.
Exactly. I can't read this. It's like Golfo naphthol.
What?
Some kind of chemical, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. And so that chemical and elbow grease drive out bugs quicker than political hot air. So yeah.
Wow.
And then has some more stuff. I mean, yeah. Again, I'll give this to Phoebe to post on the Instagram. I'll also put it up on the Twitter so that y'all can look at it because it's quite funny. Like, what a weird concept, I guess.
Yeah.
like, I guess as far as propaganda goes, it's kind of genius. It's kind of funny because it's like, here's some tips and what we want you to not do. Like, I don't know. Like, it's awful and sexist, but
yes,
I guess it's like,
here's some sneaky household tips. Also, don't vote, bitch.
yeah,
don't
it's like, it's just, I guess like that's where it's like, again, heavy air quotes, genius, right? It's like, look at these helpful household rules, and then it's just like subliminally being like, you don't need to vote.
Subliminally, not so subliminally.
Yeah, not so subliminally.
This is random tangent, as we often do. I saw this post like a while ago that was an article in, I don't know, Good Housekeeping or Vogue or something from, I want to say the 1960s or 1940s that was like a meal plan for like a woman's like whole day. And it was like morning time was like 4 eggs, toast, something else. And then like 2 glasses of Chardonnay. And then in the afternoon it was like some other weird meal. And then another glass of Chardonnay. Like literally it was like 2 bottles of wine in one fucking day. And I'm like, she would be completely shit-faced. Like no house is getting clean.
No. Gosh. There's also kind of a side tangent, but looking at like ads for like cigarettes from like the 1940s are so funny. Like Lucky Brand cigarettes where they'd be like, it's the women's cigarette. You don't need a snack. Have a Lucky cigarette. You know? And it's like, it's now doctors saying it's the best thing for fighting those hunger cravings and stuff,
Fighting the hunger that your body does because you need to eat food to live.
Because you need to eat food, but...
Don't eat, smoke a cigarette.
Smoke cigarettes,
Drink 2 bottles of wine.
Yeah, I mean, I think we do remember the 40s for being just like the epitome of health, right?
Exactly.
Everybody knew. And ate steaks all day and drank 2 bottles of wine.
Literally, though.
Good stuff.
It's so crazy.
But yeah, so going back to kind of the history here, women decided to start cutting their hair, which was a big deal because again, I mean, even now, there's kind of a weird connotation around women who have shorter hair, or
True.
And I'm saying women a lot in this scenario too, but just any like gender identity.
Yeah.
Back in these days, of course, it was less.
Yeah. Nobody acknowledged that that was a thing.
Trans people of any kind, or trans, non-binary, anything like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, any kind of like gender identity, of course. But
sure.
Yeah, women rejecting femininity started to cut their hair, go with like the shorter flapper girl looks and whatnot. Short hair was considered masculine, and so many thought that women were shedding their beauty in a way, There was even a quote. Mary Pickford, an actress at the time, said, "I could give a lengthy and, I think, convincing discourse about long hair making women more feminine. One thing I am sure, though," and she's speaking about like flapper girls and actresses who had cut their hair shorter, "she looks smarter with a bob, and smartness rather than beauty seems to be the goal of every woman these days." Which, like, I don't know, maybe it's a neutral statement, but it sounds a little like backhanded, like a comment wise. It's like, I guess she looks smarter, but like she doesn't look beautiful anymore. Like, I'm like, what the fuck? I
want to look smarter.
Yeah, like I feel like
that's for sure what I would be going for.
Yeah, I feel like smart is what most people want to look like. I don't know. I mean, I guess people want to look hot too, but
I mean, yeah.
I don't know. I feel like short hair looks great on many people. But
I want to have it all.
I don't know. I'm gay, so.
I mean, me too. So let me tell you what looks good on women.
For sure.
Sorry.
Any questions about women? Phoebe's got you.
I got you, guys.
Our resident expert on women.
They are hot.
Beautiful. Prior to the 1920s, women didn't frequent salons, which was interesting because there wasn't much of a reason for them to.
Sure.
They grew their hair out, and I mean, when they would cut their hair, they'd probably just do it at home.
Yeah. Yeah.
So many hairstyles were created at home by a friend, or if you could find a male barber that would oblige cutting your hair off, but again, it was a little bit harder to find a male barber that would be like, yeah, I'll cut your hair to make it look like a flapper.
Right.
I guess towards like the end of the 1920s, it was a little bit more common because like there were movie stars that had like shorter hair and stuff, so it became more common. But I mean, like if you were like at the beginning of the 20s or even like the late 19-teens, like I bet it would have probably been more difficult to find a barber that would be like, yeah, I'll cut your hair off for you.
For sure. Well, it's like very rebellious and
exactly.
Yeah.
And I mean, again, like public opinion, even in the 19-teens, was still kind of like, I don't know about all these women's rights thing.
For sure.
Women and rights, don't know about that, champion. Like, yeah. But after the 1920s, the women's only salon industry exploded, which I don't know. It seems like that might have been more of like a time period thing, because like I've always thought that salons are just for anybody who needs to get their hair cut. But
yeah, I think like now it's definitely become more of like an everybody's kind of place, but like definitely originally it was like barbershops are definitely for men, salons are definitely for women. But now it's definitely more just into whatever.
Well, and I guess that does make sense. Like, if you're trained to cut a specific kind of hair, like, I assume most, and again, you're the hairstylist, but I assume most people who go through, like, cosmetology school probably learn, like, men's cuts and women's hairstyling all together, you know?
You for sure do. I think, I'm trying to remember, I'm pretty sure, like, back in the day, though, barbering and cosmetology used to be separate.
Yeah.
And so you would learn, like, the longer haircuts in cosmetology school and then barbering, which, like, it's still sort of separate to this day. Like, there are just solely, like, barbering schools, but you would learn long haircuts at barbering school now. Yeah. And then, like, within cosmetology programs, you learn shorter haircuts and, like, a little bit of barbering as well.
Well, and the only big thing I can think that, like, barbers really do that salons wouldn't do would be, like, shaving.
Yeah.
But if you don't do that yourself now, but shaving, I definitely don't see it in salons as often. It's pretty common, like, especially now that, like, the more kind of bougie barbershop is in style, like, they do, like, the full service thing, hot towel, shave, you know, all that shit. I actually love shaving. It's so much fun. I haven't shaved in a long time though, just because I don't have a straight razor. I need to get one, but I keep not doing it. And I need, like, a good, what is his name? Johnny, Tommy. What is his name? The evil barber guy. Oh, from what? I don't even know.
From fucking Sweeney Todd. God damn.
Oh, Sweeney Todd.
That was really, like,
Emily's gonna be so upset with us.
She really is. Uh-oh. Anyway. But yeah, there you go.
Anyway, yeah, interesting. I knew you would have some thoughts there.
I sure do.
But yeah, so many conservative Christians equated long hair with godliness, so it was obviously controversial to cut one's hair off. The surge of women's liberation was seen many ways, but shined brightly through the fashion of the day, women rejecting the traditional molds that they were told to fit into in favor of styles that were more comfortable. To this day, women face sexism because of their appearance, but the ladies of the 1920s helped pioneer a better world for us all to live in. Because again, like, a big thing with feminism is, like, it also helps men who don't want to have to, like, fit into their gender role, just like women don't want to have to fit into theirs, you know?
Exactly.
It's where, like, that toxic masculinity shit comes in, where it's like, just because, you know, again, if you break down all the gender roles, then everybody can just be who they are.
Yes.
And it's better.
Yes. Yeah. And I feel like that's, like, the ultimate goal is just, like, erasing gender binaries in general. Like,
yeah, and just, like, not
it's made up. It's all made up anyway, so.
And that's just getting to the point where it's just like whatever you want to go by.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to do, however you want to look.
Exactly.
Again, if you're not hurting anybody, then who cares?
Who cares? Yeah. And,
I
like,
don't know.
I don't know, it's so crazy to me because I feel like things that are labeled as, like, masculine or feminine literally was just one day someone was like, this is what that is, and, like, decided it. And it's so fake. Like, high heels, literally, like, in the whatever Shakespeare times, like, medieval times, dudes would wear high heels. But then one day, someone was like, no, this is for women only. And now, still, to this day, like, high heels are seen as, like, a feminine thing.
True.
Even though that's just fucking fake. Same thing with
stupid.
makeup. Like, men used to wear makeup all the time. Now it's seen as, like, somebody decided one day that's a feminine thing. I don't know. It's just so funny to me. I'm like, feminine and masculine is not even... It's not real.
Yeah, it's because it's like, it's just an object. Like, this object doesn't have a gender. This object doesn't have a preferred gender that it's a thing. It's just an item.
Right, and it's just, like, something that one day somebody made up that that's what they thought that it was, and then for the rest of forever we've been like, yup.
For the rest of history.
You're right.
No, for sure. I mean, yeah, because it's like, and like, I've bought in, like, women's clothes from places before, like, I, like, shout out Junior's section of TJ Maxx, because and, like, you know, it's just, like, it's a piece of cloth.
Yes.
Like, and the only thing I can kind of see is, like, obviously, there are some differences in builds and whatnot, but, like, again,
but
it's a
honestly,
piece of cloth.
even then, like, there are certain, like, I don't know, body types. There's certain, like, women, cisgender women, who fit better into, like, quote-unquote men's clothes better. Like, you know, it's just, even though, like, they're made to match whatever, biological, whatever the fuck, but, like, even, oh, hello.
Moonshine.
Even then, like, it's still not really real.
Yeah, no, and for sure. And then that's not even bringing up the whole topic of, like, transgendered individuals or women who have penises and men who have vaginas and things like that, and them finding clothes that they feel comfortable in. So again, it's like,
but yeah,
whatever.
Like,
again, wear what you want.
Yeah,
I support you in anything you do.
Same. We here at Remarks Podcast, we just want you to be happy. So
exactly,
wear whatever you want. Fucking be whoever you are, and we love you.
Exactly. Unless you are somebody who doesn't like the cucumber lime Gatorade. Sorry, I had to bring it back. I haven't talked about the cucumber lime Gatorade.
I know, you haven't brought up that debate again. Listen, honestly, I think you're a piece of shit if you like cucumbers, so...
Oh, shit. Just all cucumbers?
Yeah.
Phoebe's taken a very staunch anti-cucumber stance on the podcast. Yeah. All right.
I straight up don't even like cucumber water.
Oh, wow.
I don't think it's good.
Do you like cucumbers in water?
No.
Wow.
I don't like cucumbers, period.
You don't like cucumbers?
I straight up don't like cucumbers.
Wow.
They're just like, it just like literally tastes like...
They're just mid to you?
It just tastes like shitty water. Like, it just tastes like low quality, bad water that is crunchy.
I mean, I respect your opinion,
Thank
but
you.
I have to disagree. I think cucumbers are dank. Anyway.
I can understand.
We need to take an ad break, and then we will be...
Izzy Brizzlers.
Back. We'll be Izzy Brizzlers?
Ad break.
Izzy Brizzler.
Izzy Brizzlers.
Anyway, see you in a second.
Bye.
All right, we're back. What is up?
Bookstores.
We're talking about bookstores. Support your local bookstores because
go to your small time bookstore and buy some books.
I know it's tempting to buy from Amazon.
It is.
Sometimes the last time I bought from Amazon was when I caved because like they had this early access to a book that I wanted to read really bad, and I was doing it for my Manosphere videos.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, fuck, like I don't want to buy from Amazon, but
I know
it's like I'm gonna have to wait like another month before the book is like officially released and doesn't have like the Amazon pre-sale. It was frustrating, but
I know. I've been like thinking about downloading Audible, which I know, but I just I don't really have time to like sit down and read a book, and I listen to so many podcasts when I'm cleaning or driving or whatever, and I get like so much information there. I would love to like hear some books.
Yeah.
But Audible is like one of the very few options that you have, and they have pretty much everything on there, you know.
Let me shout out. It's tricky because there's like perks to Audible, of course.
Yeah.
You get like that free book that you like always have, you know, once every month or whatever. I use one called Scribed. This is not a sponsored episode.
No, but if they want to be though.
Yeah, Scribed, hit me up. Scribed is cool. It like is a little bit weird with it, the way it's like advertised, because it says like unlimited books for $9.99 a month or whatever, and so I was like, oh, sick, unlimited books, hell yeah. But then like I probably read like 2 or 3 Agatha Christie books on there, and then it started like limiting the titles from her I could read until like the next month. So that like it is
like you're reading too much Agatha.
Yeah, it's like, so it is unlimited, but it's not unlimited everything all the time.
Sure, yeah.
But like there's always something for you to read, but it's not like you can't just like be like, I want to read every single Stephen King book in the next 4 days, like or listen to it or whatever.
Right. So. Okay, that's good to know though. I will definitely check that one out.
And again, for audience members who want to read,
yes,
I listen to a lot of books.
Who want to read in a listening format.
It's quite nice because again, finding time to like sit down and read is tough.
Yeah, and I usually just fall asleep because I'm tired all the time.
Exactly.
Yeah. After you've listened to our catalog of episodes here.
Of course, that's the prerequisite.
Yeah.
You can't actually. I'm trying to pass a law right now where you actually can't read any books until you've listened to all of Remarks, and then once we put out a new episode, that actually bars you from all books until you listen to that episode.
Yeah, so. Even like a paper book that you own, it will not open.
Yeah, like the words become like jumbled up, like you know, like a foreign text. It's like speaking in tongues in the Bible. You know, you gotta have the Holy Spirit of Remarks in you before you can read the book.
Remarks is basically the seer stone
exactly
for books.
Yeah, it's something, you know, we're still working on the cult that we're making, but soon.
It's in beta right now. Beta testing.
New cult dropping soon.
Oh fuck.
Anyway, the lovely and talented Phoebe.
Oh, thank you. Well, today I'm going to talk about Mexican women and the zoot suit craze.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. I was inspired to talk about this because of an Instagram post from Alak Vaid-Menon. They posted some super great slides about this book called The Woman in the Zoot Suit by Catherine S. Ramirez. So, yeah, and also follow them on Instagram. They have a lot of really good, like, posts and shit about shit. So, to set the scene, Los Angeles, it's the summer of 1943. I'm imagining some kind of, like, smooth, like, noir jazz playing in the background as I'm telling this.
I could see it.
Yeah. Many Mexican-American men and women have adopted the style of the zoot suit, which was a look that was popularized from black dance halls from, like, 1930s Harlem. The zoot suit is this large, oversized suit, very long jacket that will go down to, like, almost your knees, even longer sometimes. And then oversized pants. Whoa. I was using my hands to talk. Oversized pants that were very flowy, and then people would usually cuff them at the bottom so they didn't, like, trip. Yeah. Yes, exactly.
I looked up a picture of it.
It's a pretty sick look, to be honest.
I like it.
Yeah. And then when they would cuff the ankles, it would kind of create like this little crease right above. People would usually accessorize with like a long dangling pocket chain, things like that. The Mexican American who wore this style would sometimes swap out the pants for a suit skirt, sometimes a long one. As they got a little bit more into it, the skirts kind of shortened to be a little more like provocative. And they would, like, juxtapose the masculine suit with very heavy makeup and bold jewelry, and they would wear their hair in these really large bouffants. They used something called a rat, which is, like, this little foam sort of just block that they would put under a layer of the bouffant to make it very high and large. Yeah. Which nowadays that's called a bumpet. Find those in Lehigh.
I feel like there were a lot of commercials for those
on
so
many
TV when I was a kid.
Yes.
I remember so many of those.
That was like a late night infomercial thing.
Oh yeah.
And sometimes the women would accompany the skirts with fishnets or like decorative stockings. These women were known as pachucas, or also called cholitas, or slick chicks, which I think is fun.
How do you think that's fun? Yeah.
Slick chicks.
A real slick chick.
You're a real slick chick.
Exactly.
These transatlantic.
That's just how everybody talked.
Yeah,
then.
everybody.
They were just all transatlantic, like.
These pachucas, let me tell you. So the pachucas were making a statement by wearing these zoot suits. They were choosing not to conform to the typical white American fashion. The zoot suit had really become popular among a lot of communities of people of color, but specifically Black and Mexican communities. The pachucas were also fighting back against the sexist dress code of the 1940s by wearing clothing made for men, because, as Taylor discussed, even in the 1940s, there was still a lot of stigma against women wearing pants, and especially against women wearing suits. That was like a no-go. So they were wanting to make a statement to combat, like, these constraints put against them. As well as just to go against the American fashion, to say, like, we're not gonna fucking follow your rules, stupid America.
Yeah.
So the pachucas and pachucos, which is the Mexican men who wore zoot suits, they made it a point to hang around in downtown LA. They would frequent, bars and restaurants and stuff like that down there, or even they would just hang around on the street and kind of, like, gather in downtown LA. They really wanted to basically make a point that they belonged there. Because, of course, there was a lot of racism against them. They were mostly immigrants, and people fucking hated immigrants, still do. And they wanted to show their rebellion against white supremacist standards, and for the Pachucas, specifically a rebellion against the patriarchy, as well as the white supremacy of America. So because of their status quo breaking and their gender queering, the Pachucas gained a reputation for being dangerous. A rumor spread around, I know.
Like, you wear men's clothes once and then you're a criminal.
Yeah, exactly. Which, like, at the time, there was also a reputation for just Mexican American people in general for, like, being in gangs and all this shit, which, like, was not necessarily true.
Yeah, I mean, not much has changed as far as, like, weird racist stereotypes.
Exactly. But so these Pachucas, there was a rumor spread that they kept knives or razor blades in their hair.
Hell yeah, that's
to, like, fight in fucking gang fights with.
Honestly, that's sick.
Yeah, it's a great idea.
It's fucking metal, yeah.
So, like, That
actually reminds me, again, kind of a tangent here, but I believe in, like, the 1800s, I don't exactly remember the time period, but when women used to have, like, the really, really tall hair, there actually was, like, this, like, kind of thing that happened where they would start wearing, like, they would start taking, like, the pins out of the pins that were in their, like, long ass hair, and, like, using it to hairpins to, like, defend themselves and stuff, like, with these, like, long ass hairpins. Like, so I mean, that did happen.
That's sick.
So
I'm gonna do that.
Yeah, keep shit in your hair.
It's a smart idea.
I have long hair. I'll do it too.
This is our art of the revolution.
Exactly.
Everybody start getting some sharp hairpins, putting them in your hair. Men, women, I don't care. Anybody, everybody. Right. So they had this reputation that they were, like, gang members and cutting people up on the street and whatever. Los Angeles newspapers called Las Pachucas incorrigible delinquents. And La Opinión, which was a Spanish-speaking newspaper at the time, called them Las Malinches, which is basically a traitor to the established Mexican codes of chaperoned feminine conduct. So basically, like, just this cultural idea of what Mexican women should be within the Mexican community. And they were like not stoked on this. The Pachucas faced a lot of backlash from their own community as well. When the men who wore zoot suits, the Pachucos, they were pretty often looked up to and seen as these like brave rebels. And the women, of course, had these strict standards that they were pressured to live up to. And so, yeah, wasn't received quite as well, even by their own communities. And of course, white America was super not stoked on them.
Classic white America.
Yeah.
Being shitty.
So, it's the 1940s. World War II is in full swing. The U.S. War Production Board has put a regulation on fabric used for civilians because they were prioritizing the troops fighting in World War II and, like, uniforms, whatever it is that they might need. Which, at the time, I mean, there was rations on a lot of things.
Yeah.
The Mexican Americans, however, continued to wear zoot suits despite this fabric regulation. And since the zoot suit's oversized, flowing, it's longer than even just a regular suit, it required a lot of fabric to make. And so at this time, there was even underground tailors who would be making zoot suits. Yeah, like
That's
speakeasy fucking tailor.
Speakeasy tailors. Hell yeah. That's fucking hilarious.
Yeah, it's so sick. And so because of this, zoot suits were seen as extremely unpatriotic. Not only because of just like, of course, because of this fabric regulation, but then also just because it was like something that had started from like black dance halls in Harlem, and it was pretty much only popular with more like communities of people of color, and so white people were like...
It's just like the racism mixing with like the pro-war sentiment.
Exactly. Like... Yeah, exactly. Really just a match made in hell.
Yeah, honestly.
So, LA... at the end of May 1943, there was a conflict between some U.S. servicemen and some young Mexican Americans. I couldn't really find too many details about what this conflict really was about. My assumption is that the military members were upset about the Mexican Americans wearing zoot suits, as well as just racism.
Just a general... being shitty.
Classic racism, and probably xenophobia as well. So this conflict ended up with a U.S. sailor being beaten up, and then I couldn't find an unreported amount of, like, what the Mexican-American group suffered in that conflict, but I don't know. Of course, the U.S. sailor was kind of the only one reported on.
Yeah, classic media not given the other injuries in the situation.
Exactly. So this situation really pissed off the U.S. military, and this conflict is basically what people believe is what sparked the Zoot Suit riots. Due to this, as well as like another event, which I didn't want to get into because it's just going to be too long, but it was called the something Lagoon murders. So surrounding all of this, there was like you were just saying with the media, I mean, they did not fucking help at all. It was like they were pushing this narrative that like immigrants are fucking shitty and everything, and then just would like released a lot of stories about like people who wear zoot suits are criminals and bad and don't support the troops. So on June 3rd, 1943, a large group of U.S. Navy members stalked downtown L.A. They were carrying clubs or other blunt weapons, and they went around and just beat the shit out of anybody wearing a zoot suit. This went on for several days.
Jesus.
Escalated dramatically. U.S. military members would hunt down Pachucas and Pachucos, beating them, stripped them of their zoot suits, and left them naked and bleeding in the street.
God, fuck.
It's unreal.
Yeah. That, like, reminds me, I mean, it's not quite as horrific as, like, pogroms in, like, Western Europe, which is basically where they just, like, went and there'd be something that would, like, spark a controversy and people would go and, like, just murder fucking, like, Jewish towns, like, just destroy them. But it's, like, similar in a sense, like, it's just this, like headhunt, like, it's anybody they see, like, it doesn't matter what you've done, like, you're just, if you're wearing that fucking shit, And I mean, I can't imagine that it probably didn't like stem into even people who weren't wearing those
Oh,
and just
yeah.
were. You're probably gonna get into
I
it.
am. Yeah. I mean, it's fucking wild. This story blew my mind. The police, of course, did not do jack shit, and actually the only jack shit that they did do was arrest the victims of the beatings after they had been brutalized. And, like, literally, they would just sit on the sidelines, watch this shit happen, look the other way, and then once they were literally half naked on the street, like, bleeding out, they're like, you're going to jail.
God.
Of course.
But why don't people trust police officers?
Yeah,
oh my
like,
God,
literally,
fuck you, dude.
I'm like, do you want an entire history of everything police have ever done? Because I'll tell ya.
Yeah.
We'll spend.
You got time?
We'll do a few episodes. We should definitely do that at some point. That'll be a lot to get into. But anyway.
Yeah.
And then once the police were off duty, they would actually join the group of assailants and start beating the shit out of zoot suit wearers. So.
Again, classic fucking America. I mean,
Yep.
the police and the white supremacist groups are the same.
One and the same.
They're all the same. The police are a white supremacist group, basically.
Well, exactly. Yeah. It's fucking true. They are the largest white supremacist gang that exists.
Honestly. Oof.
Yeah. I'm like, you want to call somebody a fucking gang? You want to act like these people are a gang? You're the fucking gang.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So, the numbers of police and servicemen started increasing to the thousands, and like you were just saying, so the targets of violence started to become much less specific. Basically, any Latino person, suited or not, they didn't give a shit. They just started beating the shit out of them. And then also just started beating black people as well as Filipinos.
Yeah, because, I mean, again, racism.
Yeah.
It is a good old slippery slope.
Yeah, well, and it's like, this really was just an excuse for...
Yeah.
To turn it into something like this. Like, I think it originally did start with military members being upset about, whatever the conflict was, plus knowing that there's supposed to be a ration on fabric and seeing people walking around in these zoot suits and just being assholes. And then it's like everybody else who had negative opinions towards Mexican Americans, any person of color really, was like, oh, sick, we're going around beating Mexicans up, I'm in. Like, yeah, and so it just basically turned into this excuse to just be violent towards the people that they were racist against,
Yeah, I mean, and that's just like, isn't that just how it always goes, too? Like, it's like, it starts with some dumb shit like that, and then it's like, but also, we gotta do this, and then we gotta do this, and we gotta make sure we're safe, and, it's like, you're probably killing and at least injuring, like, severely injuring people over fucking fabric, dude. Like, I don't care what war you're in, like, chill the fuck out.
I know.
Like, God.
And it's like, you are using that as your excuse, but, like, truly, you're just doing it because you are a racist piece of shit. Like,
yeah, it's true.
You can pretend that it's about whatever you want to say it's about, but it's just because you want to hurt these people for no reason. So, the violence continued all the way through June 7th, and by then... Ooh, this is going to piss you off. By then, taxi drivers had actually started offering free rides to any military or police who were headed to a riot zone.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Gotta love it, dude.
Yeah.
It's just so typical. Like,
I know.
Nothing fucking ever changes.
I know.
If you look at, like, the BLM protests from last summer, it's like, okay, people are protesting... Usually not even that gnarly. Like, there's a few instances where it got, quote unquote, like, violent. And it wasn't even really violent. It was, like, property damage.
Yes.
And, like, people are getting tear gassed. And then the right can just waltz into the white or into Congress.
Yes.
Like, the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, and it's just the same thing. Taxi drivers are going to drop people off at protests where there are specifically... committing violence against people of color, and then it's like, okay, let's juxtapose that with, again, 20 years later, civil rights, peaceful protests.
Yes.
They're getting fire hosed. Like, are you fucking kidding me?
I know.
Like,
I know. It's fucking...
It's just, it never changes.
I
It's
know.
like, for a country that's supposed to be all about, like, free speech and fucking everybody's right to do whatever, it's like the government and the police force has 10 out of 10 always fucked over progressive protests. So much, like, they'll 10 out of 10 will always support a right-wing protest over any kind of left organization.
Exactly.
No matter what the left does. Like, it could be a peaceful protest. It could be a bunch of people just walking with signs down a street, and, like, they'll fucking be out there in riot gear. Like, oh, dude.
Literally.
Sorry, that did get me heated.
No, I know. Well, and it was, like, last year? Yeah, last year, there was, like, a big I think it was, like, anti-mask, some fucking thing, at the Capitol in Salt Lake City, where a huge group of right-wing fucking whatever people showed up, and they weren't just doing anti-mask shit. It was, like, I mean, whatever, pro-police, white supremacist, really, is what it was. Protest, and just showed up, and they were, like, all over the steps of the Capitol, and revving their motorcycles, and being fucking annoying. The second that anybody came out for the Black Lives Matter protests, police were surrounding you. You weren't allowed.
Here.
We weren't even allowed to go up on the steps of the fucking Capitol. Like, oh, yeah. And then, you know what? I can't hold it in. Literally, and I'm sorry, I'm about to just fucking go off on the goddamn governor, but I hate this man. I hate this man truly with the most bottom burning fire in my heart and soul. I hate this man. So literally, last year, all of the Black Lives Matter protests going on constantly ended in people getting arrested, people getting beaten by the police, etc. And I'm talking specifically Salt Lake City. Like, it ended in violence from the police to the protesters. So, and all of these laws came out last year of, like, restricting the fuck out of protesting. Last year, there was mask mandates in place still, and group size mandates as well. A group of anti-maskers went to Spencer Cox's house, outside of Spencer Cox's house. There was, like, I don't even know how many of them. It was over the regulated size of group. Big, large group of them, not wearing masks, protesting masks, and this motherfucker Spencer Cox literally fucking was like, oh, like, these people are just trying to voice their opinion. Me and my wife made them cookies and hot chocolate.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the fucking Black Lives Matter protesters are literally getting the living shit beat out of them. Fuck you. I'm sorry.
Like, nightly getting the living shit beat out of them.
Yes. Like, people went to the fucking hospital.
Yeah, like, there was some shit. I mean,
some
like,
intense shit.
I've heard stories, and a lot of it, I mean, here, it was pretty gnarly.
Yeah.
Portland was also pretty gnarly.
Portland
like,
was, yeah.
People, like, were, like, it was getting tear gassed nightly. Like,
nightly.
They were nightly getting tear gassed.
Yeah.
And, like, you know, like, we're like, yeah, I'm gonna go fucking blind. Like,
yeah. As well as, like, and I mean, a lot of cities last year. Minneapolis had a ton of fucked up shit going on. I had a friend in Seattle who we would, like, message each other back and forth just because they used to live here in Salt Lake, and we would just update each other on the happenings, and yeah, they would just tell me, like, horrendous stories. There was, oh my gosh, I know I'm going off a lot, but
okay.
There was, like, one night that there had literally been, like, basically it was like a fake protest. It was a trap created by the police in Seattle. And so a lot of people went down there, and the cops were just already there and literally just, like, kettled the shit out of everyone. It's so fucking makes me crazy.
It's like our friend James, I'm pretty sure he had posted about something, like a protest or something, and got, like, this weird DM from, like, an account that was like, where is this happening at? Can you give me more details?
No.
And he was like, he, like, showed me, he was like, this sounds like a fucking cop, right? And I was like, oh yeah.
Absolutely.
That's a fucking cop, dude.
Jesus
like,
Christ.
Yeah, shit like that. And it's insane. Because no one fucking listens when you're like,
I know.
Yeah, the cops are bad. Look at what they're doing. And I mean, and granted, like, last year was, there, like, a lot of headway was made in, like, radicalizing people against the police and things like that. But it just is so frustrating because it's like, even now, it's like we hear in the fucking media is like, oh, those crazy BLM protesters.
Antifa.
And Antifa, the terrorist organization. And it's like, do you see what was happening? Like, it was not, like...
I know.
Yeah,
but they just...
it's
and
insane.
it's the same thing just like these Zoot Suit riots where they cannot see that the people on the... in my eyes and in the true... the innocent side of it, because any violence occurred at all, it's like, oh, well, they must have done something to piss them off. Like, last year there was all these things like, oh, a cop was hit by a water bottle, so obviously they deserve to shoot some person in the leg. Like, anyway.
Yeah. And it's just, especially because, like, I don't know. I don't know what was being said at the time of the Zoot Suits riots, but, I mean, it's like... It's just like this. There's always just been like this weird like, and I mean, we've known that it's like kind of a thing with police officers, but it's like there's just weird like circle of like, we're gonna say they're doing this,
right,
and no one's gonna say anything about it because back the blue, right?
Yeah,
like
because we're the cops.
Exactly, and I mean that was absolutely happening at the time.
Yeah,
whether or not there was some violence on the side of the Zoot Suits and the Mexican Americans and whatnot.
Sure.
It's like, there might have been, but not nearly...
Yeah, it doesn't matter
to the same level,
to
yeah.
this. Like, this is not an appropriate response. And it was probably self-defense.
Probably.
And yeah, and I mean, going back to the Zoot Suit riots, like, this was not helped at all by the fucking lamestream media. Like, they literally were just... posting story after story about, like... Demonizing immigrants, demonizing specifically Mexican-American immigrants, and demonizing specifically Pachucas and Pachucos. Saying that they're these fucking gang members and committing crimes and da-da-da. And so then people are like, oh, well, we have to protect our city or whatever by just being unnecessarily violent. So yeah, the whole fucking taxi driver thing is some shit.
Yeah, that started it. That lit a powder keg.
It's okay. It's alright.
Like, oh.
We had a lot built up inside of us. Oh, and before I jump back into it, I just want to say a strong, hard, clear fuck you to Spencer Cox. You are the most cowardly, hypocritical, small, embarrassing motherfucker that has ever represented this state. You are a fucking loser. Spencer Cox, if you're listening. Anyway.
Mr. Cox, I would invite you on the podcast, but Phoebe would swing on site. There's no doubt in my mind that, like, Phoebe ever sees you, it's go time.
No comment. Okay, back into it. We're fine. Everything's fine.
Everything's fine.
So, where did I go? Taxi drivers. Oh yeah, there we go. So as this increased, military and police from other cities in California actually went to LA to join these mobs.
Oh my god.
Yeah. And this is where things just got horrendously violent, as if it wasn't already before. Once these other members from other cities started coming in, I mean, it just exploded. Somehow even worse than it already was. I mean, there was literally thousands of military and police just fucking shit up. And they were, like, literally just pulling Zoot Suiters and anybody that wasn't white off of, like, streetcars, like, literally just pull them out, Jesus. Beating the shit out of them. And there was a black man who got pulled off of a streetcar and had his eyes gouged out with a knife.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Yeah. These attacks finally calmed when the military personnel were confined to their barracks. So, if that doesn't illustrate exactly fucking...
good consequences.
Yeah, like, if that just doesn't say, like, exactly what this, like, what was causing this violence, like, that's it right there. When it literally did not calm down until you literally just had to lock the military personnel to their barracks. Like, they couldn't leave. And it's like, oh, you removed that party and now it's over? Weird.
Wow, weird, yeah.
Yeah.
Your city's still standing with the Zoot Suiters still around? Like, seems strange if they were the ones that were going to be, like, burning your cities down, according to the media, right?
Yep. Yup.
Ugh.
I know. And as I said, like, a lot of victims of these beatings were arrested, and the LA papers made out the service members and police to be heroes and claimed that the military and police were protecting America from a wave of crime brought upon by immigrants.
Of course they did.
Yeah, like, of course. And like we have basically been saying, this thought is like still very heavily prevalent today, and something that has basically never died out and was made increasingly clear and unignorable during the Trump administration. Like,
yeah.
Just, yeah.
Well, and it's wild because it's like, okay, so, you know, there's obviously this violence is happening, and, you know, what's your thought as, like, somebody of one of these communities? It's like, oh, we need to, like, protect ourselves, right? So then you get, like, a group like the Black Panthers that forms, where it's like, yeah, we're protecting ourselves, we're getting firearms, we're getting organized, we're creating a community because no one else is protecting us, right? And then you get demonized from the other side that's like, oh, well, look at this, violent group of people that have guns. And it's like, the fuck you mean? Like,
Exactly.
you're the reason they have guns. You're the reason they need to defend themselves. Like,
Yeah.
it's just, again, we could historically look at, and maybe we should on a podcast, but like, protests and the different things that have happened and whatnot, but like, it's all the same. It's always the fucking same.
It is. These Zoot Suit riots lasted, so it started about May 31st and ended approximately June 8th. So that's like a solid, like, over a week. That's like 10 days or something.
Yeah.
Of just, firstly, Pachucas and Pachucos getting the shit beat out of them, and then just increasing to anybody that these military and police had fucking racism towards, just literally getting shit beat out of them, eyes gouged out.
No.
Crazy enough, nobody actually was killed.
Wow.
Like, shockingly, nobody
Jesus.
died. I know. That blew my mind.
That's insane.
Yeah.
I'm surprised. But,
Me too.
And that's great. I'm glad. No one got killed.
Died.
Got died up in there, but
But yeah, it's crazy.
yeah.
So in response to these attacks, the LA Council put a ban on Zoot Suits June 9th, 1943.
Wow.
That's the solution.
Yeah.
Thanks, LA.
It's the suit's fault.
Yes.
That's,
Classic LA just being a huge fucking swamp of shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I fucking hate LA. Like, just as a city,
I
too.
know.
Like, I fucking
just
hate
in
LA.
general, fuck LA. To this day, it's actually still illegal to wear a Zoot Suit in Los Angeles.
Really?
Yeah.
Holy shit,
Yeah.
that's insane.
I was reading an article that I believe was like June or July 8th, 2020, that was saying it's still illegal.
That's wild.
Yeah.
That'd be, I mean, I feel like it can't be enforced. Like,
No.
I'm sure you could just walk around and no one would give a fuck, but like,
Yeah.
that's funny that it's like technically
Yes.
illegal.
I think it's like probably one of those like wacky laws that like, it's like you can't eat an ice cream cone on a horse in Kentucky or something like
Yeah.
that. But yeah, it is still on the books. It is illegal to wear a Zoot Suit in Los Angeles.
Wild.
Yeah. And so to highlight really what we're talking about here with women's fashion in particular, the Pachucas have been kind of ignored when it comes to telling the story of the Zoot Suits and of the Zoot Suit riots and all of these things. It's usually just the men that are focused on. But it's important to recognize what the Pachucas did for Mexican American women's culture and just like the liberation that they allowed to start happening there. They had this big impact on the culture, influencing the Chola style and sparking this revolution of Mexican American women owning their sexuality and their bodies, confronting gender norms, and challenging racist stereotypes. That was another thing that like was a big thing with the opposition to Pachucas, was that like their short skirts, their fishnets, their heavy makeup they would wear. It's like, oh, they're these floozies, you know?
Yeah.
So they really pioneered this for other Mexican-American women. And to close this out, I have a quote from Barbara Calderon Douglas. She had this to say about the influence of Pachucas. The Pachucas embody the remarkable strength and creative independence it takes to survive in a society where your social mobility has been thwarted by racism. The Chola identity was conceived by a culture that dealt with gang warfare, violence, and poverty on top of conservative gender roles. The clothes these women wore were more than a fashion statement. They were signifiers of their struggle and hard-won identity.
Cool.
So, there you go.
That's rad. I quite liked that story.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's really interesting because, you know, I know that, like, it's hard with, like, a lot of movements because, you know, there have been some great progressive movements that have happened, but there's always, like, one problematic thing about, at least one problematic thing about, like, a movement. Like, for instance, like, the women's suffrage movement was, like, pretty racist.
Exactly.
Like,
yeah.
you know, and I know, like, the civil rights movement was, like, pretty misogynistic.
Sure.
And things, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, there's different issues. So it's really cool to hear, like, that side of it, too. Because I feel like a lot of people know kind of, like, the women's suffrage story.
Mm-hmm.
But hearing, like, a minority group.
Totally, yeah.
Inside of, you know, women's minority. I'd say women are, like, a social minority.
Right.
So it's like a minority group inside of that whole struggle is very interesting.
Yeah, and just like getting the perspective of like different because not only were the Pachucas rebelling against like the white supremacist patriarchy, but their own patriarchy as well within the Mexican community. And so yeah, it's just obviously I'm white, so I don't have that perspective, and it's just it's interesting to learn about, and yeah, just cool to hear about these fucking badass women that owned themselves.
Yeah, that's sick. I did want to mention, so the story that I was going to look up.
That's right.
Kindergarten teacher Helen Hulick made Los Angeles court history. It's like a blow for women's fashion. Spider on the ground.
Uh-oh.
It's right there.
Oh, God.
I'll take care of it a second. But, so yeah, it was in 1938. She was there for a court case, against two burglary suspects. She was actually testifying for this thing, and then it turned into the judge rescheduling her testimony over and over again because she would not wear a dress. She would wear pants to there, and people were real mad about it.
Fuck.
That was the story.
1930s.
1938, yeah.
1938. Damn. That's wild.
Even into when you were talking about
that.
Yeah.
Well, and foolishly, I didn't write it down, but it was, I have it right here. I just didn't read it. Phoebe. In one of the articles I read, it said that Pachucas might have been some of the first women to wear pants. So,
wow.
And I don't think that they were the first group of women to wear pants, but I think they were among one of the first group of women to wear pants and
for sure
wear them, you know, out and proud and often.
Yeah. I guess before we get into like all of our closing stuff, just to ask you, how do you feel that, like, you know, the sexism of the past has been improved upon? How do you think, like, in some ways it may have gotten worse in some areas?
Right.
Or, you know, I guess just what are your thoughts on the progression of, like, women's liberation in general?
Totally. I have, of course, a white woman's perspective, so my thoughts and feelings will never be the same as somebody who's not white. But yeah, it's interesting because, like, it's nice that I can, like, wear pants and vote and hold higher positions and things like that. And I feel like I don't face as much discrimination as women used to, in the sense of, like, I like to wear pretty slutty clothing. And I can walk around downtown or, you know, wherever and have a pretty, like, I'm pretty well received. I'm not gonna get screamed at too much. I mean, it definitely happens sometimes, but yeah, I have an easier time. Like, I'm not gonna get kicked out of a restaurant or something for wearing, like, a short skirt. But it's interesting, and Taylor and I were talking about this the other night when we were discussing this episode, and it's weird how, like, this sexism has transformed now into, like incel shit. Where it's, like, this weird, underground, extremely violent, which, I mean, it always has been, but it's in this freaky way now. And, like, obviously there's still the wage gap. Like, we still don't get paid as much. There's, in a lot of, like, religious institutions, women can't hold high positions. It's still rare for women to get promoted in their companies and things like that. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's gotten better in the sense that, like, I can be a business owner. I can own a house by myself. I don't need a husband in order to, like, accomplish the things that I want to in life.
Yeah.
As well as I think there's been a lot of headway in the, like, women, at least the owning their bodies thing, at least in the sense of, like, women who don't want to have kids. That's definitely become more normalized. Like, women having multiple partners or dating around is more common and much less looked down upon these days. But it's interesting because, like, women's healthcare is still very shitty. Like, a lot of women, for instance, like with endometriosis, will not be believed for a very long time, and then they're fucking having cysts on their ovaries that are exploding and having to get emergency surgeries. Obviously, abortions are still very policed, and I mean, just within, I think was it last year or 2 years ago, there was, like, all these different states were trying to, like, ban abortions.
Like Alabama was the big one,
which is still trying to happen. So yeah, it's kind of like you were saying. I mean, it's just, I feel like we just do the same shit over and over. We're like, okay, yeah, I'm glad I can wear pants now, but, like, I still have to fear for my life walking down the street, and I still have to, like, hope that I'm gonna be able to have the medical care that I need.
Yeah.
That doesn't get taken away from me.
Yeah, no, I mean, it sucks. And we were talking about the incel thing a little bit, and it's like, it's weird because it's turned into this, like, because I feel like a big basis for a lot of the sexism back then was, like, religious conservatism, but now it's like, it's almost like this conservative, like, the religious part is gone because the majority of incels, at least from what I know, aren't necessarily religious, they're just conservative. And I feel like you kind of have to be to have those kind of views because it's very degrading, and, you know, even, like, weird religious people are like, whoa, that's a little too far on the women hating there, champ. But yeah, like, but yeah, it's like they fetishize this, like, conservative, modest woman that's, you know, a virgin, and
is that whole, like, trad wife thing?
Yeah, like a trad wife, and, like, you know, does everything that they want, and, you know, basically this person that doesn't exist, like, you know, they have this perfect ideal image of, like, what their woman is, and it really just boils down to, like, you just want, like, a mindless robot that you can sleep with. And it's like, because that's really what it is, and it's like that person doesn't exist, and you know, so I think there's been so many strides that have happened, but it's also, like, it's taken this really weird, like, the sexism has taken this really weird shape that, like, in some ways is more dangerous because, like, you know, it's, these people are obviously willing to commit violence. See my YouTube video on it if you want to know more, like, because, and, you know, so it's like, not that there wasn't violence towards women back then, but it was less, like, mass killing sprees, you know.
Well, and I feel like it's at least with the incel movement, they have, like, a centrality, you know, like, they have, like, a group where they can go specifically and be like, man, I fucking hate women. Me too. Like, they have, like, this outlet for it where I feel like, of course, like, back then men at work would get together and be like, don't you just hate your fucking wife?
Yeah.
Like,
wives, am I right?
but like, I feel like it's so, yeah, they have this whole community for it that they're supported by.
Well, and like the rise of feminism too is like a big part of it, because, you know, it's like a rejection of like the feminist, quote unquote, again, heavy air quotes,
Yes.
female ran society, you know.
Right.
It's like, so it's like, yeah, it's this like backlash almost, whereas like then it was like, you know, men kind of knew they were in control. Now these incels have tricked themselves into thinking that women can pull all the strings, and they're out to get them specifically because of the feminist agenda, you know. And
yeah, that's a good point. That's a good way to put it, and a good way to like note the difference is that, yeah, it was like men, I feel like back in the day, came from this place of like, oh, women are weak and we can control them, and then now it's sort of, it's funny, incels are so fucking stupid, but like, it's funny because they also have like a women are weak kind of thing, but then the main incel thing is like, oh, women are gonna take over and force us to be whatever the fuck, and it's a weird,
it's a contradiction. It's like, it's the same with everything, like nothing in their like quote unquote ideology makes sense. Like it's, but like they've just twisted it in this way. But again, that's probably another whole video topic.
It is, but
podcast topic.
Yeah, but yeah. So yeah, all that being said, and before I like make a I guess closing statement, we'll see because we always go off. But like, yeah, the feminist movement, you know, women's marches, he for she or she for he, whatever that one is, have made strides. It's been great, you know, but it's also been very, like, white centralized as well as, like, pretty cis centralized and at times transphobic. Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of progress still to be made, but you know, we have made moves, and I mean, it's I guess better than it used to be.
It's
in some ways it is
better, and I'd say, I mean, I'm not a woman, so I don't know, but it seems like it would be better in a lot of ways.
Yeah, there's definitely more like body ownership, there's more like freedom with certain things, so yeah. Glad I don't live in the 1940s, but 2021 is not amazing either.
Yeah. But yeah, always feel free to give us y'all's opinion on things.
Yeah.
Moving into our little closing statements here, or closing it up. Phoebe, would you like to announce the winner of last week's comment challenge?
I would love to. The winner of our comment challenge last week, shout out to longtime friend of me, close friend and great friend of the pod as well. She's just been a great supporter since day one. My good friend Annabelle, love you so much, miss you. Her most feared bird was an owl, which like, yeah,
I see it.
They're fucking scary, especially if you've watched Twin Peaks.
Yeah,
the owls.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
Thank you, Annabelle, so much for listening. Yeah, and leave us comments. Let us know your feelings about these two movements, the women's suffrage movement, the 1920s flapper movement, the Pachuca Zoot Suit movement, and let us know your feelings about like how the ways in which like women's rights have progressed and the ways in which they've not progressed.
Yeah, and then for the shout out game next week.
Yes.
Comment your favorite piece of clothing or style. I feel like it could be an accessory. It can be, I don't know, shirts if you really like shirts, like whatever it is. But yeah, shout out your favorite piece of fashion.
Yes, love that. And you can do that. You can leave us comments about your feelings and tell us your favorite piece of clothing on our Instagram page, which is at Remarks Podcast. That's of course spelled REMARX, like Karl Marx. You can leave a comment on the one TikTok that we have up at our TikTok, which is the same, at Remarks Podcast.
The Twitter is Remarks Pod, or at Remarks Pod on Twitter, and Twitter. And you can follow my YouTube channel, which is The Lefty Agenda. Just put out a video. Going to be putting out more soon.
Do that.
And I think that's it.
That's all our socials. So, yeah. Thanks for listening.
And
Okay, love you. Bye.
Bye.